there's some people who ain't saved in Nigeria. So they
Wow.
believe in other things like Yoruba spirituality, stuff like that. And so even now it's really interesting how in America people are like trying to like tap into the roots and go into that.
Yeah.
And I always preach like, hey man, you ain't trying to go back. You ain't trying to go back into that. You need to follow Jesus. And so ironically though, with that, one of my names, like Wande is the full thing, Yewande. And so the three words combined is Ye and then Wa and then Nde. And so Ye means mother, Wa means ours, and De means arrived. And so for them, it symbolizes like the mother has came back. But there's an issue when you are a Christian with that because it kind of symbolizes things like reincarnation and stuff like that. And so I always went by Wande, which would just mean has returned, and I took the Ye part off. But I just felt like recently God was like, hey, I just want you to cut ties and, cut ties with the affiliation and everything. And so I actually have a new name.
Welcome everybody to the Juxtaposition. I'm your host, Nana.
And I'm Janet.
And Bernice is actually missing. She is in choir practice, so she couldn't take off this Thursday. We actually set up this interview. I think we had another day before, but she was going to miss that one too because she had prior stuff. But Bernice is, with us.
Yeah, she is with us.
In love.
In love, literally.
But today we have a special guest, as you guys can see or hear if you're listening.
Yes.
We have Wande. Everyone clap it up for Wande.
Hey.
Thank you for joining us. I want to tell everyone how we got this interview. So, I was chilling, I think in my bed. I was just chilling. And I was using Threads. And usually I don't use Threads. But I'm like, let me see what Threads is saying. So I used Threads, I posted something, and then I seen Wande just posting consistently. And what I liked about like your social media is that you actually interacted with your fans. Mm-hmm. Like you talk back to them, you let them know what's coming out. I was like, wow, she's really active in a good way. So I'm like, you know what? I said, Nana, why don't you just shoot your shot. Just say, hey, I'm part of Juxtaposition. I'd love to interview you. And I just wrote it. And then I wrote it, I'm not even joking, maybe 2 minutes after. No, not like 5 minutes. You're like, send an email to my team and they'll get back to you. I'm like, what?
We were like, I was like, wait, huh?
I sent them the screenshot so fast. I said, you guys look.
We went wild in the group chat. It was a world. Really? I was
I couldn't believe it. I'm still kind of in a disbelief, to be honest. So we want to thank you once again for giving us an opportunity because a lot of times like people don't really give lower, I would say.
Not even just regular podcasts that are not a podcast
an opportunity if they don't see them have thousands of followers and stuff like that. So we want to appreciate you Wande.
Yes, and taking this.
Yeah. Shout out to the boldness. That's what you gotta do. God tell you to ask, then you just gotta ask.
Live bold, live bold.
Period.
Facts. Okay, Wande, how did you get your name? Like, where does your name derive from?
It's actually very funny because I literally am actually doing a name change. And so that's the ironic part. So yeah, I'm actually, hey, fun fact. But yeah, I'm actually changing my name. And so I'm going to be announcing it soon. But yeah, I'm actually changing my name because of where my name was derived from. And so, yeah. And so I just kind of grew up with the name Wande, like, never really thought much of it. And because, my parents gave me the name type stuff. And so growing up, some people may know a little bit about my story, but I grew up with a Muslim family. And my mom, she became a Christian later in life. And yeah, so I ended up getting saved later, as a teenager. So I've been walking with Jesus. And so, as a teenager, you ain't got that much autonomy, especially in the United States. You got to wait till you're 18 so you can have rights. And then after that, blah, blah, blah. And so for me, I think people had made jokes like about the origins of my name when I was a child, but then fast forward to whenever I'm an adult, I never thought anything of it ever again type stuff. And I wasn't even saved. So maybe I was 7 whenever people were making jokes about it. But then I get saved at 13 and then I'm not thinking about my name again until later on in life in my 20s. And so, yeah, ironically, recently I was like been doing a lot of praying and fasting, and I felt like God, he was like, hey, I want you to address your name again and look at it. And so, yeah, I looked at the origins of like my name and stuff. And so I'm actually Nigerian. And so in Nigerian
Shout out.
culture, hey, shout out Nigeria.
Yeah.
So in Nigerian culture, a lot of names have meanings, and so like they're like sentences. But unfortunately, as well, you know, there's some people who ain't saved in Nigeria, so they
Wow.
believe in other things like Yoruba spirituality, stuff like that. And so, even now, it's really interesting how in America people are like trying to like tap into the roots and go into that.
Yeah.
And I always preach like, "Hey, man, you ain't trying to go back. You ain't trying to go back into that. You know, nah, you need to follow Jesus." And so ironically, though, with that, one of my names, like Wande is the full thing, Yewande. And so the three words combined is Ye and then Wa and then Nde.
Yeah.
And so Ye means mother, Wa means ours, and Nde means arrived. And so for them, it symbolizes like the mother has came back. But there's an issue when you're a Christian with that because it kind of symbolizes things like reincarnation and stuff like that. And so I always went by Wande, which would just mean has returned, and I took the Ye part off. But I just felt like recently God was like, hey, you know, I just want you to cut ties and, you know, cut ties with the affiliation and everything. And so I actually have a new name.
Wow.
And so, yeah, so my mother actually gave me two new names, which, you know, are private, but they're God names, you know. And then the last name that I'll be going by is Anike. And Anike is a name that means just someone that you care for, that you treasure in your life, and like you just don't take for granted as well. And then some other names that my mom gave me are just things about being content with the Lord and stuff like that.
Wow. That is amazing. The name change.
Interview opener.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it though. Like I love that you like Christ is like, it's like as Christ renews you, and it, like you're doing like a baptism in a sense where it's like now you're being renewed, like you're renewing your name.
Yeah.
Like so cool how like you have to look at just the depth of what the name meant, and like you want to make it proclaim like life and not something that means something else, right? And as you mentioned, like just talking about how you had two religions, like how was that? How did you ultimately choose between the two? Because I know that maybe you were brought up in the Islam faith and being Muslim, like how did you ultimately say like, hey, this is what I want to follow, right? Because it's kind of hard being a child and not having, as you said, much to say. So how did you ultimately choose?
Yeah, I would say for the most part, my parents were kind of chill. So like my dad didn't like force things upon us. So my mom, since she was saved, she was like, hey, I want to bring the kids to church. And so for him, his understanding of Christianity was like, oh yeah, just be a good person type stuff. So he was like, yeah, they can be a good person, have morals, go to church. But it wasn't until I was in middle school, which ironically Christian rap led me to want to go to a Christian summer camp, you know, beyond Sunday. And which ultimately led to me being saved, that's whenever like I saw the tension between the two worlds, because now it wasn't just Sunday, oh cute, good person, but it was now like, no, I encountered Jesus. He changed my life. You know, he's giving me life. And I remember coming back home and being like, hey dad, man, like I met Jesus. Man, you gotta know about Jesus. He changed life. I saw someone get healed. Like we got in a car accident. They broke their legs. Now they jumping like,
and you're like, what?
Yeah, and then I was encountered with like persecution, bro, at my house. So my father, he was like, nah, this ain't real. Oh, nah, I don't want you to go to church no more. Like, you know, the good person thing was cool, but this Jesus thing, like, I don't want you to do that. And yeah, it's just like, I think it's stuff that you even hear from people maybe like at school and stuff like, oh, like that's too much. And for me, I just knew like, oh no, like it's not too much. Like I knew how Jesus drastically changed my life. I could feel the life inside of me. I could feel just a drastic change. Like I went through living my life every day, not thinking about Jesus, to like now he's on my brain every single day. Every encounter, I'm like, oh man, how can Jesus be involved in this situation? How can this person encounter God? And so, yeah, I just made a decision in that moment that, nah, I'm going to follow Jesus with or without being allowed to go to church or whatever. So for me, that looked like phase one was a couple months when it was fresh, where reading my Bibles, waking up early in the morning before he woke up so I could read my Bible. You know, phase two, my mom was like, hey man, it's getting a little too intense. So she would let me go to work with her. And from there, my uncle would pick me up so that way I could go to church and learn more about like who God is. YouTube was still popping around then. So, you know, shout out to people with cameras who had cameras. So I was able to, you know, get some YouTube sermons as well, to learn more about God for the times I couldn't go to church. And yeah, like yeah, and then my mom just would help me along the way too and be like my cheerleader. So things like that is how I like kind of developed my faith, and it's been really cool like seeing how God was able to send resources along the way, like even some friends I met along the way like in school and stuff like that.
So who did you like? Who is in your corner? Like, who did you grow up with? Did you have a mom? Was the mom and dad in the picture? Did you have siblings as
Yeah.
well?
Yeah, so I grew up with my mom and my dad and my siblings. So everybody like they love me. It was just once you start talking about Jesus, it's a problem, and that's when
It's
it's
like
like
fighting words.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like spiritual warfare, like, and so that's so interesting too of why Jesus is such a polarizing figure, and that's why like Jesus is Jesus. It's like
Yeah.
it was cool until I said Jesus. Now it's a problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, but other than that, like they were super loving, like cared for me, stuff like that. But it was just the Jesus thing that they were like, and honestly, I think it's kind of rooted in tradition, which is something I feel like even now God is like calling me to look at and challenge. Even we see with my name thing, like I think with tradition, we just do it just because we were born into it. You don't think about it. You're like, oh, that's just what my family does. And so I think that's even why it was an issue like with my dad, because he's just like, oh, we're Muslim. Like, that's just what we do. Like, and that's even why our names are Muslim. It's just like, that's what we do. Like, we're Muslim people. We give our kids Muslim names. We pull back
Yeah.
up every year for Eid and whatever. Like, and so I think it was for them. It was almost like the battle was more of like a pride thing of like, oh, how can I lose my tradition? Like, this is who I am, versus like, why don't you question why is that a tradition even in the first place? Like, what is that even rooted in the first place?
And I feel like, sorry to cut you off, but like even pride, but people looking at them, maybe their friends, maybe people who are in the same community, like, how is your daughter going out of this, maybe this box that we've created, that we've traditionally, did step by 1, 2, 3, and she's all of a sudden saying, hey, nah, I'm not part of that. Like, that's, I
Yeah.
think it sometimes brings a shame to them, because I know a lot of Nigerians, they don't want to feel ashamed or embarrassed by their children. They want
Yeah.
to feel pride and proud in them. And so when you did that, you were like, yeah, no, I'm bold. I'm
It's
out.
like,
So,
Yeah.
but it was good, right? But a lot of parents, yeah, I understand their logic behind that. So.
yeah.
And so when your mom decided to become a Christian, what happened to your dad? Did your dad follow as well, like, or was he said like, nah, this is not for me?
Nah, he basically just said, nah, this is not for me. And I think that's something my mom advises me now, like the importance of being equally yoked in your relationship, because obviously she was raised by Muslim people as well. Like her mother, like, so she actually just passed away, but she became a Christian like literally like a week before she passed away. And so like
Wow.
literally like she was surrounded by Muslim people. So I think if you don't have that many Christian influences, mentors, things like that, it's kind of hard for you to grasp the concept of like being equally yoked, because you're like, oh, well, I know my mom and I love my mom and she's a normal person. Like, like I guess it's normal for me just to marry somebody who's like everybody else who I've ever known. But I think she realized later in life, I was like, oh no, this is very important that you need to be with somebody who believes the same thing that you believe. So for her, I think she was just young. So like she just didn't have an example of like why that was important. But now later in life, she's like, yeah, definitely be with somebody who is in the same belief systems.
Mm. So what ignited your music career? Like, what was that initial, like, I'm a rap?
Yeah, so it kind of fell into my lap. It really was like the Lord. So I actually had a biology project, and yeah, one day my teacher randomly was like, hey, I want you to do either a rap or you can do an essay or a PowerPoint about cellular transport. And
That's how you
so
know it's Americans, because in Canadian school they ain't been telling you to rap. They're just like,
LOL.
write it down.
Yeah, and literally, so I was like, why would you not choose rapping? This is the easiest option. Like, come on, y'all.
Yeah.
But I think it's also like an embarrassment thing, because there's a TikTok that I'm low-key gonna repost or whatever, because there's a TikTok about like, oh, the professor said dance or do a long essay for your final, and
Yeah,
people don't want to dance in front of the class, so they're like,
that
no,
would
I'll
have
write
been
the essay.
pop locking it.
Yeah, but hey, your life can change. And so, yeah, God used that to change my life. I chose the rapping option, and then I showed my friends before, and then they were like, yeah, you're actually really good at this. Like, you could be a rapper for real. And I just noticed it got like a different level of attention. Like, it was like people staring intently and people like blown away. And so I was like, oh, this is kind of weird. But I was like, hey, man, I'm passionate about Jesus, so this is perfect. I'm going to use this to tell you about Jesus, because apparently it got your attention. So That's kind of like the genesis of that. So it was on a small scale at first, of like freestyle circles at lunch and things like that. And I was like, perfect, I got all these people's attention. I'm telling them about Jesus in these 30 seconds. And then from there, I felt like God was like, okay, let's go on YouTube and learn how to replicate this. So then people be like, Wande, come rap. And I'll be like, hey, here are these headphones though. So I'll get them these headphones and like then they'd be able to hear what I'm saying. And like you're listening intently. So if I'm telling you a gospel presentation, you got a gospel presentation for 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's where it went. And then my church, they actually had a summer convention. And so maybe later on, like sophomore year, I was allowed to go to the summer convention. And then from there, they had a talent show. And I entered. Everybody was shocked. They were like, "Are you sure you want to do a talent show and do rapping?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Okay, ma'am." And then I did the rapping thing, and like the whole room exploded as well. And then from there, I felt like God was like, "Yeah, I want to use this to like inspire my next generation, my youth to like, be excited about praising the Lord."
That's crazy. I feel like even that moment could have been like also it had to be a discerning spirit too, because it could be like, oh yo, I'm good, like I'm gonna puff myself up and like it's all about me. But you deflected it as saying like, I'm a Christian, knowing your word, you're like, no, God wants to use me for this instead of this area, because you could have went into the secular field, you could have done regular rap music, being good and blow up there, but you decided to take your gifts and talents and use them for his glory. So that's awesome. Yeah.
Hey, shout out God.
Shout out God. So like you started in the music industry like when, in the Christian music industry? Like what's the year, what moment did you kind of start?
I think it's kind of hard because like Christian industry went through phases. Like professionally, for real.
Yeah.
Professionally, for real, like I got my contract and everything like 2019. And then like before then, I was like on my independent grind. So it's whatever I could get. SoundCloud, 2018. I think I learned how to finally upload a song onto like Spotify and stuff in like 2018. So I think that's whenever I first got my stuff like on the internet for real. 2017, 2018. But yeah, basically like I found out I could rap like 2011. From there, it evolved like every year a new baby step. So baby step 1, freestyle circles. Next year, baby step 2, YouTube videos. Next year, baby step 3, talent shows. Then I'm in college. Then so from there, it's like in college, they're like, hey, you want to perform at our show? And I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll perform at your show. And it's crazy because as I was growing up, like social media was growing up. Because like ironically, when I got signed in like 2018, TikTok didn't exist, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And so I got signed before the TikTok era. So I remember back then, all you had was Instagram and YouTube to promote yourself. And then pandemic hit, TikTok evolved, took over the world.
And it blew up. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Can you share a time where you had to trust God in your process of your career or pursuing anything in your career?
Yeah, I think honestly every day, bro. Like, I think with our career, since everything is so opinion oriented, and humans are humans. People go through different phases. So I think sometimes, you really have to believe what you're saying and what you're presenting, like to the label, because obviously they're a business. So I have to trust God every day of like, hey God, I feel like you're leading me to say this. Maybe the label at this moment feels a different thing, but I really feel led that God is telling me to do this. So like, for instance, most recent example is my song Send That.
Which is
I really
hard.
It's so
by the way.
Thank you.
Golly.
I was like, it gets me in the mood.
Yeah, so I really felt led to release it on a particular day because I felt like God was saying, hey, release it on this day. And I remember they were kind of like, oh no, we need to. So my husband laughed. It would actually came out like this week, which is crazy to me. I'm like, dang, that's a long time. Like we've been waiting all this time. And so yeah, like originally it was supposed to come out like now, but as you can see, it came out like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I really felt like God was saying release it then, and like they were kind of apprehensive about it, but then they were like, I mean, if you said God said, then we're not gonna argue. But then I'm like, hey God, don't make me look stupid out here. So yeah, I really felt led, but then it was really cool because in this particular situation, God was able to show physical results to help back me up. So with that, we got support from like Spotify, and they like put me on like different playlists like New Music Friday with like other artists like Dua Lipa and stuff like that. They put me on like several like mainstream playlists, and then they put me on like regular things. It was like my highest streaming song ever.
Wow.
And like, yeah, we also got funding. Like Meta was like, hey, we want to give you a grant for several thousands of dollars to just support your song. So even things like that, like you can't control that, can't plan that. But then they were like, okay, hey, apparently God told you the right thing. So we're like, hey, shout out God.
No, seriously.
Real talk.
Definitely. I feel like even just going into like you're talking about kind of being obedient to his call, right? Like you're signed to Reach Records and you're the first female to be signed to Reach Records. Like, and then I heard that you started as an intern, so you had to kind of like,
which is nuts.
Like not dumb yourself down, but like kind of
started
like
from the
sit in the bottom row. Like, how did you feel about like being obedient, like in that position? Like, how? Just tell me about that kind of.
Yeah, I would say it was like refinement 101, bro. Like, and I feel like it was needed. In the moment, I didn't know it was needed. But then God was like, yep, we gonna need this. And so I'm really grateful that he put me through that. But yeah, in the moment, it was hard because like I just, you feel like you have something inside of you. I'm like, God, you told me you want me to be a rapper. I'm still out here working for people. And like, even as an intern, they do some traditional intern things like, oh, get us coffee. I thought that was a joke. Like I thought that was only like on TV, and I'm like, oh, this is like real life.
That's real.
So it was definitely like a legitimate, like humbling process of like, oh yeah, you gonna serve like for real, and so, yeah, different things like that. I feel like refined my character to like never think too highly of myself. I think it also taught me to value people because you never know who that intern is. Like just because they're an intern does not mean they're stupid. Like they could be a whole intelligent person that's serving you. So it taught me to like love just everybody at every single level, appreciate them, go say hello. So I always try to make my rounds when I'm at the office to go say hi to everybody. Just different things like that. Like you just never know. And ironically, with my particular story, a lot of people who are on my team, like I've met them like on an intern level. Like the Mikkel, he shoots my videos. I met him when he was an intern. He killing it with the videos. My producer now, I met him when he was an intern. He produced like my whole album that's about to drop. So like literally. Like it's crazy that, you just never know like who's sitting there. And so God can sometimes highlight them. Sometimes it can be a hidden season and then God will be like, all right, it's time now.
Yeah.
How did you get your internship?
Oh, it was traditional, I saw the application on an email and then I applied. It was just like that. And
like
then,
that.
Yeah, and God came through. So it definitely said don't apply if you're a rapper. But
he knew what he was doing.
He helped me out.
How do you prepare and create like your music? Some people, they need things. They need
exercise,
they
or
need exercise.
They listen to other people's music.
Yes.
Or, what gets you in the mood and like for creating their creative process.
Yeah, there's multiple things. But really it's just like God, like, so I've been like, for this particular album, I've been fasting. I fasted the whole album, which is crazy. I got tired towards the end. I was like, Lord.
You're like, Lord save me.
We gotta hurry this thing up because tired. But yeah, so seeking God for like what is the message, bro. I always try to get back to like the heart of worship, like this. I song, I'm coming back to the heart of worship. Yeah, so like literally, I just really like am like, God. One, my favorite types of songs to write are like God leaning worship all the way type songs. But even like, what message are you telling me to tell people? Like, what are you highlighting to me? Because I could be walking to an airport and then God will highlight somebody of what they're going through to me, and I'll be like, man. And then I'll sit down and be like, let me write something so I can communicate like how God loves that person in spite of like what they're going through in this moment. But it's different things. Really, just observational and just kind of like spending time with God. Like that's how I get like what I want to talk about. I try to journal now so I don't forget, because sometimes I'll be getting ideas and God be saying stuff, and then it's like I need to be able to revisit this when it's time to write. And then from there, just collaboration. I think God has blessed me with some amazing, geniuses. So like we said, like my homie Clark, he was literally an intern. And then we stumbled upon like, hey man, I think you're kind of a creative genius when it comes to these production. So different things like that. And then I realized also I work better in a camp style setting. So a camp is whenever you do kind of like a lock-in, but for music. So I work better doing like maybe like a 3-day camp. It's like a 3-day lock-in. We might go home like at 10, but we come back like super early, like 7. And yeah, we just tap in 3 days. All you do is work on the album. And then from there, I just kind of go back and do finishing touches after that.
So there's not ever like a writer's block when you're doing like the 3-day camp, because I know like it's an intensive process of writing and
Yeah.
just being creative. Like, have you ever had any challenges when producing your music or anything that you've faced when?
Yeah. I think sometimes, so that's why I like the camp style, because you could have a writer's block for like 5 hours, but then I don't have the pressure of like, oh, my 5 hour block is over, I have to go home. Like, it's a pressure, there's a less of a pressure, because after that 5 hours, we might have a conversation, and then I still have 5 more hours to record. And that conversation might have sparked, encouragement for me to go write something. Or then with the camp style, since we have my homies, like my close friends, like, if I'm stuck, I can be like, hey man, just go turn up on the mic one time and do something funny. And then like from there, you might be like, hold on. You just gave me an idea now. And then now I'm motivated of like what to do. So like different things like that. Like that's why I like the camp style pressure, or the camp style setting, because it's less pressure of like, oh, I'm confined to 3 hours. And if I don't get it right, my 3 hours is over and I have to figure out, what to do next time, versus like, hey, if you don't got it right now, that's okay. Let's talk. And something's gonna come in the next couple hours. If you don't get it, we're gonna play around until we figure it out, type stuff. So
Something I observed from you, just doing my journalistic digging, listening to your 2020 album Exit compared to now, I feel like it's two different people. Like,
LOL.
in terms of like content, in terms of your
Maybe
cadence, your rapping abilities, like
LOL.
I'm like, whoa, it's like night and day, which is a good thing. So like, can you talk about the journey to where you're at right now? Like, how did them 4 years, because 4 years was like a long time ago. I mean, we had it felt like 10 years ago, but we had the pandemic. We had so many things. So talk about the journey and what influences you now to speak what you speak on these records.
Yeah, I think life will refine you. Like, and life with God will refine you. So I think it's really just that. I think I've been through a lot of different things. So I think at this point in my life, I'm like unapologetic about what I have to say. So I'm like, I'm gonna say what I need to say. So I think that's also what's sparking it. I think also there's an intentionality to life. I think before, you might see phrases that you have in conversation of like, oh man, I want to make a song like that one day. Or like, oh man, like I could have made a song like that. I just gotta do it. And then I think one time my friend asked me, they're like, okay, if you can do it, then why don't you just do it? And sometimes you don't have the internal I guess dialogue or internal checklist. I don't know the word for it, accountability, to like be like, oh, why don't you treat this verse like, with your abilities that you're capable of? Like, why are you treating it casually? Because sometimes we can just treat it like, oh, I gotta turn it in. Or that's why I said like I don't like the scheduling my days of like, oh, I only have a 3 hour session, because then I feel like, oh, I have to get it done now and just turn it in, versus like, oh, I have time to like sit and actually think and do it well. So I think that's what's changed, of like I'm now more in a sense of like, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it well, type stuff, versus being like, oh, I'm just gonna turn it in, vibes.
Yeah. So before you were saying, like you talked about kind of before, your identity is also being Nigerian and that's your cultural background. And some of your songs have Yoruba in it. And just like I was listening to it and it just made me kind of like happy. So like, is that part of your like adding in the language? Is it kind of something where you want to showcase your culture in some of your songs? Like, how do you kind of like play the words or play off the words when you?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's even part of my intentionality now too, to be like, yeah, every aspect of me. So, me being Nigerian, speaking Yoruba, incorporating that. So even my new album is gonna have more Afro songs. Also like just being a woman, being like, oh, let me have some feminine songs. So you're gonna have some feminine songs on there. Yeah, so just different aspects of how I grew up. Literally, you'll just see like the dynamic range of like, oh, this makes sense. This is Wande, this melting pot of all these different things.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah.
How is it like being a woman in this Christian rap space? Because I feel like there's more men in the space. So how is it like being a woman in the Christian rap space?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think it's a journey. I feel like now I'm in a better place of like, oh yeah, I'm chilling. I feel like I've always been cool, but I just went through like some trials along the way that were just very irritating. But I think the best thing you can do is just know who you are. So like, and that's a life lesson too. Just like knowing who you are in Christ. Because I think I've been through different phases where I felt like I had to be like overly masculine, and then I was like, nah. And so then I was
I'm a
like,
woman.
yeah. So then I'm like, nah, I'm gonna wear my pink and I'm gonna do my nails, and so it's fine. But if I look at my old stuff, like 2018, 2019, like I was definitely like in my baggy era, like, oh yeah, I had to be hard. And so it was like, nah. And so I think, yeah, I feel like the best thing is just like knowing who you are, being content in who you are. And I feel like most of the guys are really supportive, so that's really dope. Yeah, I've been lucky to have like good encounters with wholesome men of Christian rap. So I think that's cool. And yeah, I think the biggest thing is just like figuring out, I guess, navigating friendships, because it's difficult, because especially as you grow up more, like it's easier when you're a teenager, like, oh yeah, we can just all hang out vibes. But I think it's harder as we all like age, and it's like, oh, like we're kind of all married now, and we're all like have lives. So like, hope we have whole children now. So like, I think stuff like that, it makes it harder for us to all hang out, and bond, because then it's also even more of a dynamic of like, oh, I might hang out with the wives versus like the husbands, but the husbands are the artists, so I have to also maintain artist relationships. So it's not easy, but I think God just gives grace along the way. And the people I need to connect with, I connect with. I think I'm also just having grace of like everybody that ain't got to be your best friend. Like, so I think I'm having grace of being like, whoever is meant for me is meant for me. Whoever God has for this season is for this season, and we'll connect and unite if we need to. And it's okay if they're not on this album, because there's another album, so we might connect with that album type stuff. So different things like that.
Yeah, because sorry, there's such a microscope on. I also feel like there's a microscope on like just Christian rap as well. Because I believe you were on an interview with Ruslan, I believe that's his name, and you guys were talking about the video of In the Light, I believe, and how people were kind of like scrutinize you guys for wearing certain stuff, and I'm like, damn, like they try to do something positive, but there's still something negative that people want to say. So it's unfortunate that you try to do something good, there's still people want to try to pour whatever gasoline on it.
So I feel like the best thing is like you just gotta stand behind your yes. I feel like that's for me, like especially like just standing firm in my decisions. Like if I'm gonna wear this, I'm gonna wear it. So like I think also just knowing like not letting I'm pretty much not this type of person, but just not letting myself be swayed of like, oh well, somebody else said it was okay, so that's why. Because I feel like that's when you can get rocked real fast. And then like you be like, well, you told me to do this. It's like, hey man, what do you want to wear? What are you comfortable with? What do you define as modesty? All right, now stand behind that type stuff. But I think I'm always open to correction. So like, don't be prideful. But I think for the most part, I try to operate with checks and balances to where I'm not even putting myself in that position anyway to be wearing something crazy out here. But I think it starts with level one of like having standards. So like now I'm incorporating stylists. So I tell them like, hey man, I don't want my chest exposed. I want this. So I'm like, don't buy no clothes that only give us those options. So I don't want to be placed in this position. So usually a lot of artists
that's so refreshing to hear. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. But some artists are actually really modest. Sometimes they get placed in that position on accident. So sometimes what it really is like the stylist bought the clothes and there ain't no other clothes. So then it's like, dang, I have to go out there. It's either not put on the clothes or put on the clothes. So like, it's like, So sometimes some people are actually really innocent. It's just they got placed in a compromising position. So
that's an eye opener.
That is interesting.
Because as people who are watching, we're judging, right? And even us, we're gonna say, well, it's like a righteous judgment. We're supposed to judge them righteously, but it's like we don't know the behind story. We don't know if they had a choice. You don't know if they had option to pick what they wanted to pick.
Yeah, kind of that like, actually, God actually taught me a lesson about that because a song I did with Maverick City, and I was kind of irritated about that situation. It's okay. So I had did a song with them, Firm Foundation remix,
which is so hard.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh! When I think that song is hard. Oh my god! What continue?
He said, "Oh look, yeah." So the same situation happened to me. So they had a dress code of like, we want 70s. It got to be brown. It got to be this. Ain't no stores have anything in that, because especially at the time of the year, ain't no stores have anything in that palette except for like one thing. And I was in a different state doing my own show. They want me to pull up the next day. So I remember I had someone give me some clothes, help me out. And then we go on stage or whatever. And then I remember yeah, I just remember like there was just so many things going on. And then I remember whenever I got there too, I was supposed to go last. And then when we get there, we like do a prayer and they're like, oh yeah, we have a new show order. Wanda, you going first. And I was like, wait, what? I ain't get time to try on my outfit. I don't know what it looks like on my body. I ain't got no mirrors. Like, and so I remember with that situation, I just get thrown out there. I'm like, well, I got to put on my clothes because I'm trying to make the album. And so, yes. Yeah. And so I go out there. And so a lot of people, though, were like, in real life, it didn't look crazy, but the camera angles made it look crazier because, like, the camera angles are like from below. And so all you see is my legs. And then it's like, so a lot of people on YouTube, they didn't say anything because it was like the wider shot. But on Instagram, where you have to crop in, it just made it look even worse. So I remember for that, like, people were like, oh, like this is what's wrong with our generation, you know. And I'm like, bro, I love Jesus. I probably I had to say something in the
You have to
comments.
fight for your faith.
Yeah, I had to say something in the comments. I'm like, look, man, I'm team modesty. I'm probably the most modest person in my friend group. You know, I was placed in a position. But yeah, so God actually taught me a lesson though about not judging people because I'm like, I love God for real, and I'm really modest. And then look at that. So God really even taught me a lesson right there about not judging people because it's like, look, that could have been your sister, and you would have been looking at her crazy. And it's like, look, now it's you. So I was like, you right, God, you right.
That is so true. So I guess the advice you have for what would the advice be for a woman who are coming in the rap industry or coming in the music industry, like Christians, like what is some facts of like, you know?
Yeah, I guess the best advice I would give is try to find, other women to be friends with that you can link up with because, community that way. But also don't be afraid to like do collabs with other dudes as well. Be confident, love who you are. Don't feel like you have to change yourself into a more masculine version or whatever. And then yeah, with your outfits, just try to do preliminary checks, whatever you can do in advance, try to do it type stuff, or so that can save you a lot of trouble.
For sure.
I have kind of like a hip hop geek question. So, what is your thoughts on the current trends of like Christian hip hop? Like, some people going back to like what fans kind of say, like, oh, they shouldn't be using that beat, or they shouldn't be wearing the chain, or like, what's your thoughts on the current trends, or like just certain like video ideas that people are testing out? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
So I'm not really mad. So the only thing I am not the biggest fan of is like, it's like I'm not a fan, but then it's annoying because it's effective. So then it's kind of like, well, then it's helping us. So it's like a weird like trade off. But I think it's kind of like a microwave video era where it's kind of like people are just like, oh yeah, just get this content out, just get this content out, and it's unfortunate because it's like killing music videos, it's killing like intentional thought and effort because people are like, well, why am I spending money on a music video if you get way more views on Instagram? But then it's like, man, like people aren't getting a full music video anymore and a full story and a full like experience anymore. So I would say like things like that. And like, I mean, I've done it too. Like, just some like quick, I guess Christian rap videos of like POV or whatever. You just say what you need to say to like, be effective with your marketing. But it's kind of like sometimes I'm like, I don't want to just have POV on every single video. I want to be able to post the video without having to say POV, because sometimes the text I feel like kills the vibe. So I think that's one thing that's kind of like slightly annoying. But then it's annoying too because whenever you post both videos and the POV one performs like 100x better
I know
than the other one.
It's even the generation, to be honest. Like I feel like even from before, maybe when you posted a video, they would look at it longer. But like because of the generation Gen Z or even younger, like their attention span, they're gonna look at the POV. So you gotta change your marketing. You gotta change how you put out your video. But we still love the videos.
But I also think the videos last forever. Like it's history. Exactly. Whereas like Instagram or social media POV stuff, it's like, let me just give you a quick food now.
Yeah.
To stay in your mind and your ear. But the video is like, 10 years later, I'm going to look at this. I'm going to still see this. Like, the Instagram videos will just hide. I
feel like it ruins the creative process. Like, creative process takes time. And, like, I just kind of compare it to, like, when Jesus is trying to, like, reveal a message to us. Like, he doesn't microwave it. Like, we ask for it quickly, but he wants us to give us step by step, right? Even just, as you said, with the internship. Like, he didn't just put you in the position. You kind of did step by step, and you got to where you were. So
Yeah.
I think that's kind of it. But where do you see rap and like hip hop in the Christian atmosphere? Like, where do you see it moving?
Oh, I think I see it moving to like a massive level. I think it's actually really good. I think the people who are like pushing it forward, like in terms of marketing and stuff like that, are like doing Christian rap for real. But then I think it's beautiful of like it's hitting like a mass scale. So like for instance, like Caleb Gordon and stuff like that. So like if you listen to what he's saying, this is Christian rap. Like this is teaching you about like actual principles of like, you know, dying to flesh, different things like that, learning how to not be prideful anymore, being honest when it's like, hey, I got some things to work on, stuff like that. And so, but then at the same time, he's making it very palatable and like mass marketable. So I think I see like Christian rap moving towards one, not just being so self-centered, but being Jesus-centered. And then two, being like just mass marketable and mass likable. So I'm excited. That's a great place to be where it's like, hey man, the masses are consuming it and everything that we're saying is unapologetically Jesus. So I feel like it's in a great place right now, honestly.
I have a constant debate with my friends. Probably these guys have heard it. Like, what is your thoughts with Christian artists working with secular music artists?
Yeah,
I have mixed feelings because
Yeah.
I grew up on, you know, like Jay-Z and Nas and all that stuff. Like, you know, I feel like there's a great side to them. But what is your opinion on Christian artists working with secular artists?
Yeah, for me, my opinion honestly is like, hey, if I meet you in real life and you actually want to make something for God, then I'm like, let's do it. So for me, like, it's more about like, what is your intention like? So if you just want to do it for money, then I'm like, nah. But like, if you want to do it because you're like, man, I really want to do something for the Lord, I feel like I'm not going to be like, oh, no, you're not holy enough, but you can't do a song for Jesus. So I'm like, I feel like that's crazy. So for me, I'm like, yeah, if you legitimately want to do something for God, let's do something for God. I feel like why not? Like why would you not want to encourage that behavior out of somebody? So yeah, I feel like I would always encourage it and like allow someone. I think I would try to let them know like, hey, don't make this just be like oh, let me get this holy thing off my chest and go back to my ratchet ways. So I try to encourage them to keep stepping in the holiness. But I think I think I would always encourage someone like, hey, if you want to live for God, I'm gonna encourage the righteousness. Let's build that part of your life. So yeah.
As we wrap you here with the last question, what are some of upcoming projects for you or anything you're particularly excited about that is coming up for you?
Yeah, so I have an album on the way.
Yes.
So it's called Anike, and I'm very excited about it. It's phenomenal, spectacular. It's definitely very different. Like how you talked about, like like you'll still sound night and day. Night and day, bro. So a lot of singing on there, some R&B. You're gonna get the girly vibes. You're gonna get the raps. You know, you're gonna get the Afro. So it's really fire. I'm excited to release it. I'm excited for people to just be able to enjoy it. It's so encouraging as well. Like even I can like listen to it and reflect and like be like, man, yeah, God, like you bring me through, and I just want to seek you and praise you. So I'm excited for people to be able to just be encouraged by it, as it's encouraged me as well along the way from writing it and consuming it.
Wow.
Well, actually, before you leave, we're gonna hit you with some rapid fire questions, okay?
Hey.
I'm gonna go with the first one.
Oh, go ahead.
Janet. I'm gonna go with the first one, and then you can go with the second one. Okay, the first one is, what is your go-to thing to do after church service?
Sleep.
You get that Sunday nap.
Facts.
Love that. Okay, what are your top 3 Nigerian foods?
Pounded. No, amala, jollof rice, and fried rice.
Amala with what though? What stew?
With okra stew specifically.
Yeah.
That's my stuff right there. I started eating okra by itself. It's actually kind of legendary.
It's so good.
Daniel Fast put me onto it. It's crunchy. It kind of it slaps. You just sprinkle salt on it.
Salt. Oh, okay.
You sprinkle salt on it and just eat it.
Mixed with like all the
no. So this it's gonna sound real crazy, but I did like an intense Daniel Fast, and it was like you have to eat it in every vegetable in their raw state. So I was like, let me just see what okra's talking about. You sprinkle salt on okra. That thing go hard, man.
The weirdest way I've eaten okra is like my mom used to put it in rice when we used to put it with stew, and you just eat. It's actually fire.
It's actually pretty good. Yeah,
it's fire. But okay, anyways,
Give me your top 3 artists of all time.
of all time. If we're just talking ability, maybe Whitney Houston.
Good one.
That's a good one.
Who else is just ridiculous? See, there's some people who are ridiculously talented, but they make questionable choices. So we're talking about this talent. Beyonce's ridiculously talented.
Yeah.
Her personal religion choices, don't align with those. But hey, talent alone, she's ridiculously talented. Let me see. Who else is lit? I'm like, who are one of my Jesus brothers and sisters who are fire? Trying to think. I feel like I'm just forgetting.
Whitney is
yeah. And she sang for Jesus.
She sang for Jesus.
I'm trying to think. CeCe Winans is coming to my head. But she did some her recent album actually. Fire. I tapped in and I was like, man.
Fire.
The anointing.
She can sing.
Yeah.
Still can sing.
Yeah, that's awesome. What are your pet peeves? Or give me 2 pet peeves.
Pet peeves. I would say my pet peeves are, but the Lord's working on me, but just loving everybody. So I would just say, like, working in the Christian industry, you meet some people who are profound preachers, profound musical artists, and they say like profound things for the gospel. But then sometimes they be having their prideful errors. Ooh. So I would say that's my pet peeve when it's like, bro, what you're saying is phenomenal, but right now the way you're acting, I don't know. I can't listen to your music anymore for right now. But we gonna heal, and then we're gonna come back to it. So
yep.
Okay, so last
one. Wait, I'm gonna do this one. I'm gonna do one more, and we're gonna do that last one.
Okay.
What is your top favorite song to perform live?
Good question.
Probably Now Send That. That's a lot of fun.
That's hard. That song is hard. It's sorry.
So good. When you turn it on already, it doesn't even give you time to like settle in.
Especially in the car.
It just hits.
You're like, we're going.
The bass is like boom, boom. Okay. Anyway.
Okay, so I want you to finish the lyric. Okay, I'm gonna go back into your catalog of. We're gonna listen to "Been Up" on Exit. Okay, and I'm gonna play the song, and I want you to finish the lyrics. I want to see if you're on point. Hopefully you can hear. Okay, let's start it at a certain point.
Can you hear it?
Can you hear it?
Yeah, I can hear it.
Okay.
Deliver 16s, 116. You know it's no capping.
She's like, I know my stuff. I wrote this.
That was a hard line.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Wande.
Yes.
You don't know how much we appreciate this, like for you to come on once again and to grace us with your presence. Any did you say upcoming things? She did, right?
Oh, yeah,
yeah, the album
coming soon.
Yeah, that's the main thing. Hey, the album, go get the album.
And the new name change too.
Yes, and the name change. So those
we got exclusive to be honest. I was kind of shocked. She threw a curveball. I said, "Huh? You're saying this right now?" But that's amazing. We thank you. We appreciate everything. Keep going in your music career. We're excited to watch you grow, and hopefully after the album we get a Grammy. So
hey, praise the Lord.
Yes, but guys, listen to the album. Watch out for it. Watch out for her name change, and watch out for the things that she's doing. Just follow her on Instagram.
Where can they follow you?
Where can they find you?
Yes, so now it's like hard. I'm like, dang, I feel like my Instagram name will evolve. So currently it's OMG, it's Wande, but I think it's going to evolve to OMG, it's Anike. So you can follow me at OMG, it's Anike, depending on what time in life you're watching this, or OMG, it's Wande. Yeah. And you can find me on all platforms like Spotify and all that. Currently at Wande, Wande, but it'll probably evolve to Anike, Anike. So depending on what time, pull up on me,
Yeah. Be ready because she's going to change real quick.
She's going to change. All right, that's the juxtaposition, and we are out of here. Peace.
Peace.